Hey, gorgeous miracles. It's Alyssa Rushton here with your Maui and Global Awakening Energy Update. Welcome. I want to thank you for being here. I want to say this video is for you, the high vibe tribe, the sensitives, the intuitives, the light leaders of the planet. I thought long and hard about recording this video, and quite frankly, I was really nervous. I was wondering if I could even do it. So here I am doing this video, which is going to be my personal intuitive insights about what's going on with Maui, along with some actual things that you can look into. As with anything, it's really important now more than ever to tune into your heart. So just because I'm saying something doesn't need to mean that it's true for you. You really want to start to pull all the information through your heart center and feel into what is true, because ultimately that's what we're here to do. We're here to activate our heart and activate our divine selves so that we can discern more truth and hold more light. And that starts with you becoming a full sovereign being. So with this and all videos, be sure to tune it into your heart center and take what resonates for you. Okay, so let's talk about what we're going to do on today's video. I'm going to share my personal insights about Maui and the personal guidance that I received from my Divine Light team. And then we're going to talk about 911 as well. We're going to talk about what you can do to help shift this situation on the globe, because ultimately there is things that are happening on the planet that are having certain agendas. And what's really amazing is you came here at this time to be a light leader, to be a light worker, to help shift the outcomes that we have. So we're going to talk about what you can actually do, very practically speaking, things that are tangible that you can do to shift the balance and to shift the frequency, because I believe that's why you're here right now. So let's dive into this video. And everybody by now has heard about what's happened in Maui. And I want to set this up by having you think about, as human beings, how have we typically taken over land? We've used primarily two techniques. One, we kill off the people that are on that land, or two, we bring in a disease. Does that remind you of anything that's been happening lately? So, like I said, we're going to talk about a lot of subjects that are not high vibe, but we're going to show you how to raise the vibration, right? And it starts right there. And I know that's hard to even think about, that there is forces, agencies, factions out there that are trying to kill off human beings and take away their land and take away their rights. But that's historically how we've done it throughout all history on planet Earth. So when you think about what's happened in Maui, not much has really changed there. Okay, so I'm going to talk about my insights on that in a little bit, but I kind of want to set this up for you first. Next, I want you to think about why we receive information and how we intake it, and information particularly that's not healthy for us. Think specifically about cigarette smoking. Remember back to the 1920s, or for many of you, you'll have to research this. But back in the 1920s, doctors would tell you how healthy smoking was for you, and they'd recommend a cigarette brand. And it was advertised, right? They were advertising to smoke. And it wasn't until years later in this 1970s that we learned, oh yeah, smoking is really quite harmful for you. In fact, it causes cancer. So we have this cycle of being a human where somebody of authority will tell us something and we intake it as truth, we believe it, and then we'll do a whole bunch of unhealthy behaviors because somebody of authority told us to do something that wasn't good for us. Another very easy case in point, margarine. Remember back to the 1970s, or maybe you were not even born then, but back in the 1970s, margarine was rolled out and we were told how wonderfully positive margarine was for us and how it was going to save our heart health and how it was going to save us as human beings. And it turns out, oh, by the way, 20, 30 years later, it's one of the worst things you can put in your body. It's totally inflammatory. It causes heart disease and all sorts of bad stuff for your body. But the powers that be told us all that it was really healthy. And so everybody was trading in their butter for margarine. So you see how this stuff kind of works. We hear it from somebody who's an authority figure, and then we intake it as information through our mind. We bypass the filter of our heart. And so we start as human beings doing things that are unhealthy for us. So now let's fast forward to Maui. So here's my experience with this. I was on Wednesday morning in an airport going to check in for my flight. Right beside me in the line was a family who was checking in for their Maui flight. And my flight agent said to the family, she said, I think you guys are going to probably want to cancel your flight. There's wildfires in Maui that have destroyed the whole town of Lahaina. And when I heard that, I instantly knew it was false information. Now, the fire was accurate. But when I heard wildfires had destroyed the whole town of Lahaina, I was like, that is false. I don't feel that at all. And I even said to the agent, I'm like, that does not feel true to me. Where are you getting this information? She's like, I'm getting it off Snapchat. I was like, okay. So what I did is what I do with all intuitive things. I waited till I was in a place where I wasn't near a million people. I took my flight. I got into Arizona. That night I tuned in and I was given a whole download of information. What I'm going to share next, many of you might know, and to some of you, it might be really shocking to hear. So if you already know this information, please stick with me because I want to get to the tips about how we can shift this situation. But if you've not yet heard this, I'm going to invite you to hear it through the filter of your heart portal. Okay. So when I tuned into the information, I immediately saw a land grab. I saw this situation being used as a land grab and as a, how I saw it in the energy field was using this Maui as like a trial for something really new and not so positive. And I knew that a couple of corporations were going to come in and buy up as much land as they could and start to change the dynamics there. And so I tuned into that and I started asking, well, okay, what else is going on? Like, is this a wildfire? And as soon as I started to get that information, what I saw is something that you can research. You can look this up, by the way. It's called DEWs, direct energy weapons. And these are something that, you know, we've had for a while, and they are used via a satellite or a laser, and they are used to set off fires. They're used to, you can actually push out frequency and you can make a crowd of people do something. You can deter a crowd, so you can actually scatter people because the frequency is so high and they won't know what's going on. They'll just feel the need to leave the area. So there's a lot of different applications that DEWs have, direct energy weapons have, and we've had this technology for a while. So I saw this as what was being used to start the fires. I saw that it wasn't a wildfire. And then once I saw that, I kept hearing and seeing 9/11. Now, 9/11 is also my birthday. So I can remember waking up on 9/11, 2001, and I was supposed to fly that day. And I heard, you're not going to fly today. Don't even pack your bags. So I listened to my guidance always, and I didn't pack my bags. And instead, I went into my workplace where I saw the towers starting to, they were on fire. And it was about 30 minutes after I walked in that I think the first tower was crumbling. And I remember seeing it, and I instantly knew that what I was seeing wasn't as it appeared. So if you haven't already, if you don't already know this, please do the research on 9/11 and why that happened in America. Because what we do here in America is we create outward actions to take away rights of people. And in fact, in 2001, I happened to work for a very large communications company. And so I could already feel what was going to happen. And in fact, the Homeland Emergency Response Operations Act of 2001 got put into place, which basically gave the government the right to record everything you say and use it for any purpose at any time. And now, years later, right? Our voices are recorded all the time. That data is sold off to the highest bidder. There's all your data sitting in a storehouse so that companies can purchase that data to sell advertising to you based on what you just talked about. And you'll know that this is true if you ever just lay your phone down by your side and start talking about things. It will feed you ads for those same products. So we made that technology legal because before 2001, that technology was not legal. The government couldn't just record people and sell off their data. But because of 2001, because of 9/11, we created an emergency state to make a lot of things legal. And that's how we do things. It also happened during COVID. We created an emergency state to create a legal basis for taking rights away. So whenever there's a state of emergency, what our government does is it goes in, creates these new laws that are outside of the Constitution, and now we're stuck with that. By the way, don't know if you know this or not, but companies like McDonald's and Burger King are working to make ads that get funneled to you in your dream time. Okay, so that's where we're at with technology on the planet. And many people are not aware of this. Many people don't really know the level of technology that we have. And we truly do have this level of technology that companies are now exploring ways to pump in ads into your sleep time. They're exploring ways to feed in your own voice into your head so that you think it's your thoughts when it's not. That technology is there. And so this can be really hard to hear, especially if you're spiritual, especially if you like the high vibes. You're like, wait, no, that's not the reality I want to live in. And I am with you on that. That's not the reality that I want to live in either. So let's talk about what's happening in Maui. There is a land grab happening right now. So what happened for me personally is once I got my download, I called one of my soul besties and I said, hey, I just got this big download and I need to share it with somebody. And she's like, okay, yes, tell me. And I guess now it's been about a week, and turns out that is exactly what's happening. And I did not know this at the time, but in February, there was a big conference where they talked about using Maui as the first test ground for the first smart city in America, where everything's within walking distance, where everything's on a smart meter, where basically it's Wi-Fi everywhere. Everything's being green energy, but everybody's tracked and everybody is under the camera eye, right? So that's also the plan. I didn't know that at the time that I got my download. And so she's sharing all this information with me now. So I'm going to put some links below this video so that you can go explore your heart and explore other viewpoints and other versions of this intuitive download, because behind the intuition, there's actual basis for what I'm sharing with you, and it's hard to hear. So let's talk about what we can do as light workers. The first thing to think about is that there's the third dimensional energy and the fifth dimensional energy that we get to work at. And I like to work at both. I think both are really important right now. So I tend to like to work the fifth dimensional energies first. So here's some things that you can do. You can start to send consciousness energy of, we see you and what you're trying to do, and we will not stand for it. You can send that consciousness because, ultimately it's easy to steal land when somebody's not looking. If there's $1 billion sitting on the table and nobody's watching the table, it's easy to take it. But when everybody's watching, it becomes more difficult. So that's number one, you can send the consciousness. Number two, you can send the consciousness of people waking up and doing their own digging and fact finding. One of the classic first wake up signs is your reality breaking. It's you waking up to realizing that you're sort of in a false construct, like what you believed isn't really true, that's one of the first signs of waking up. Now, I don't know if you have watched it or if you remember, but in my 2023 energy update for this year, I predicted that we would have a global awakening event that caused a wake up of 1 billion people. So this is one of the events. I think there'll probably be a couple of more events, but we will wake up 1 billion people in the next year. And that's going to be a lot of people bumping up into a reality that it's hard to see at first. And it's always hard to see at first when we realize, oh, I've been living a bit of a lie here. So when you're living a bit of a lie, you find that out. But then what you find out is that you can be so empowered and you can become the divine creator of your reality. And you can use that energy and that frequency to shift your world around you into a higher place. And so that's why this is happening, so that more people can wake up and tune into their hearts and their divine consciousness and not just be fed information that they believe is true on the first pass. And that's what we're waking up to. We're waking up to our divine creator self. So the more you can go into the 5D energy fields, the more you can send energy, sending energy of awakening, send that energy to our political leaders, but also to the people with the super money. Think about people on the planet with all the money. And that's where we want to start, because that's what's driving a lot of this. So send your energy there, but send it in a way that's to wake them up, to invite those folks to wake up and remember that they too are a divine being. And it's not just about the 3D land grab and who's got the most money, because, personally, as a near-death survivor, I can tell you, you don't get to take any of this 3D stuff with you. All you take is the soul lessons and your consciousness. So let's talk about some 3D things that you can do. On the 3D level, you can share this video. You can share other videos that I'm going to link below. You can start talking to people and having invitational conversations for them to consider other perspectives. Because one of the things that we've been pretty poor about as humans is understanding that there's always two perspectives or more. And think about it this way. In 3D consciousness, if I were to ask you, is it day or night? You're going to look outside and you're going to tell me your answer. And if you are in Arizona right now, you'd say, Alyssa, it's daytime. But if you pulled up into a fifth dimensional consciousness, you would realize it's both day and night on this globe right now. We've got half the people in daytime and we've got half the people in nighttime. And some of the other people are in twilight, right? It's an allness. So part of what's happening is we're waking up into a consciousness level where we can hold the allness, where we can hold both the dark and we can hold the light. And so the more you can invite people into holding the allness and allowing them to have their opinion, but hey, take a look at this over here. And to use that daytime example, if I told somebody with low consciousness, what time of day is it? They're going to look at their clock and insist to you that it's 11:04 a.m., right? Whatever time it is on their clock. And if you were to say, yeah, but what about in Texas? Or what about in Australia? They're not going to know the time because their reality is right. And so we're moving into the place where there's more reality than just the individuated reality point. And we're inviting people to take a look at broader perspectives. So invite people to watch this video, invite people to watch other videos, invite them to expand their consciousness, and invite them to understand that as human beings on the planet, we've done a pretty poor job at evolving our consciousness. We keep repeating the cycles again and again. And if you've listened to me for any length of time, you'll know that one of the things I always talk about is the reason why we repeat cycles again and again is because we haven't healed them. I personally think this is the healing lifetime. I personally believe that this is the time when we have the most chance to break these cycles, and it requires us to pull up our consciousness, and it requires us to really do it differently. And I also believe that that is why you came here at this time, to do it differently. So I'd love to hear your comments about this video, and it's an open discussion. You do not have to agree with me at all. This is a safe and sacred space for you to share your opinions of what you think is going on with the planet and start to connect with each other, because the more we can connect with each other, the more we generate a network where we can hold higher consciousness together and where we can show some of these folks on the planet that we know what's going on and we're onto it and we're going to shift it with our consciousness. So remember that you can shift anything with your consciousness. You are a divine creature. Your consciousness imprints on the quantum field. There's a lot of science around that. And the more science comes out about the quantum field, the more we understand how you see things, how you see reality impacts change. A quick note about timelines here. We have some possibilities for some pretty gnarly timelines, and we also have some possibilities for some pretty amazing timelines. So when you wake up in the morning, with every thought that you think, with every action that you take, and when you go to bed at night, if you can be choosing highest timelines, you will help shift the planet. How that looks is you choosing to think higher thoughts. It's you choosing to see and expect more positive outcomes versus like the worst possible scenarios. Even in the information I'm sharing today, there's a lot of worst possible scenarios. But if you can go into saying, that's not the reality I'm claiming the best possible scenario as you might see it, that's going to help change the consciousness. The more you can be making choices with your daily purchases with respect to how you feel your body, not purchasing toxic chemicals, not, using Tide products with the fake scents that are horrible for our ecosystem and your energetic system and your endocrine system, right? The more you can start pulling your energy out of the things that we know are unhealthy and plugging into those things that we know are healthy, like whole foods, like being out in nature, like sunshine, like getting off the devices. Many of you have told me that you're feeling energy sickness, right? You're feeling these weird symptoms in your body. And a lot of people are saying that it's ascension symptoms, when in actuality, what it is too much time not being in a place where you're feeding your body good things, where you're being out in nature enough for your body. So it's like the ascension symptom is really too much technology time. It's too much gorpy food in your body that isn't natural. It's too much screen time. It's too much being around frequency. And you have to remember that not only are we being hit with radio frequency, microwave frequency, cell frequency, we've also got satellite frequency. So the more you can lessen your screen time, the more you can turn off the device and even leave it at home and just go be in as much nature as you can, your body will feel differently. You're going to start producing different chemicals. You're going to start producing different hormones. Your body's going to be able to repair itself. And the more you can do that, the better off you're going to feel. So this is the time that you came here where we can shift it. And with those timelines, every choice you make shifts the timelines that we slide into. So if you find yourself thinking the worst thoughts and the darkest of the darks, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's the S is going down, if you know what I'm saying, remember that you can pull out of that. 2 weeks ago, I was given a very strong vision. And this vision was a timeline train that was headed right to the bottom to crash. And at the very last moment, people started jumping off that timeline train onto this higher timeline. So you have the option to pull your consciousness up, to think positive outcomes, even when it's not looking good. If you are a race car driver and you accidentally headed into the skid and you were headed for the concrete wall in front of you, the one thing you don't do is you don't look at the wall. You look at where you want to go. You look at the open road in front of you. You do not focus ever on what you want to avoid. So now's the time to not focus so much on what you want to avoid, but what you want to create. If you feel called to create something for this new earth, create it. If you feel called to start speaking out about something, start speaking out. Now is the time. This is why you came here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching and sharing this video if you feel called to. I love you so much, and I will see you soon.